Hello, everyone. I know this is not our usual day or usual time, but this is not our usual topic. I'm Alexander Keaton. I have Nick with me, my Rio, Nick Bradshaw. Nick, we've talked aspects of what we're going to talk about today have been brought up on the show numerous times. In fact, we even sort of touched on this on our regularly scheduled podcast 2 days ago, 2 days ago. But I was mad this morning, and I actually thought about calling in to a local radio station. And I stopped. And I'm like, why would I do that when I can come and share this with my friends? Nick, I'm mad. I'm actually really mad right now. And the reason I'm mad is I'm really sick and tired of how the left treats race. Every day we're told what's racist, what's not. And this has become a huge aspect of the body politic, of the conversation. When truth be told, what is more racist? Actually, not even what is more racist. The response to Tim Scott is obvious, overt racism, and it's purely from the left. Please tell me how they called him Uncle Tim. How is that not racist? How is that not racist? Why? I'm not even going to ask how the media doesn't call this out. I'm not even going to ask how those in power, the senators, why no one's calling this out. Why would? Because they agree with it. I'm not going to sit here and say that Joy Behar and President Biden and Kamala, I'm not going to say that any of these people don't care about black people. I'm done caring about what people actually think in their hearts and minds. What I care about is what you say, what you do, what you extend, what rights you extend. That's what I care about. Because let's be honest, there are plenty of people who do terrible things thinking that they're doing the right thing. That I just care about this child. That's why I have them locked up in my basement. I don't care about what you think on the inside. I care about what you do. I care about what you allow other people to do and say. What freedoms do you give them? What liberties do you give them? I don't think what they think in their hearts, in their minds, is really any business of ours. What is business? What is the business of ours is how you behave in the outside world. And I'm going to call it this way. If you look at a black man or a black woman and you think that because they do not agree with you politically, that they aren't allowed to stray from that mindset, from a particular mindset, you are a racist, because that is a racist belief. To stray from that mindset, from a particular mindset, you are a racist. Yep. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for repeating that for me.
Nothing like taking someone and putting them in stereo. No,
exactly.
Alex, I think the point is really, so the position I think you're positing is one of, I think, genuine response. I think I've known you many years, and you contacted me earlier today, and you were very open about it. And you said, look, this does not sit right with me. Like, it bothered you in a very real way, and not in a news cycle kind of, can you believe what's going on? I'm like, you were upset. And I think some of it is the way that, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or a senator or someone from South Carolina, this is Tim Scott. This is a person. This is a man. And we see it as like, oh, this person's being yelled at in the media because that's what happens. But think about the psychological effect. When young children are called out, and I mean, teenagers and early 20s, I mean, you see people committing suicide when they feel as though the pressures of the media scrutiny have gotten onto them. And that's not with, major media news outlets and television broadcasts calling their name every 5 seconds. Now, we all know this is going to go by the wayside, because it's, I mean, you can see the way it's being shielded. And what's happening is what is always being accused of. Silence is violence, right? I started to dig around after we spoke earlier today, when you seemed upset and wanted to throw this quick take together, and in just a brief engagement of just perusing around to do some simple reading, I was able to uncover almost 10 different bullet points of things that stood out to me as being framed from a racial perspective. But in my deeper pursuit of wanting to really figure something out, well beyond obviously just looking today, but in general of examining this topic, I wanted to think, does it make sense to only look at this from a political realm? I'll give you an example. When we look to our politicians to call this out, where are people like Biden administration officials, Black Lives Matter, Reverend Al Sharpton, Stacey Abrams, Michelle Obama, people that are figureheads that have been looked upon and through the political lens and through the public's eye have been put into positions of authority and power that could provide possibly insightful, maybe supportive or calming words, possibly for such a hot topic. You don't have to look too far to see what's going on in the country. I mean, they're calling out contestants on game shows for actions they feel are inappropriate if they're tied to race relations. You have those in the media, specifically channels like MSNBC and people like Joy Behar that are trying to say, well, maybe he doesn't understand what these principles really are about, or these arguments are about, or these definitions, or the application. And that goes directly back to what President Obama used to say about the soft bigotry of low expectation. You're talking about a sitting U.S. senator. Would you say that John F. Kennedy didn't have enough of an understanding of space travel to get us to want to motivate us to reach for the moon? Is that the metric you're going to use? Upon a little more digging, I found people being fired from their positions for making comments about Stacey Abrams on Twitter. Were they insensitive and stupid? Totally. I don't support them at all. I think the guy was being a jerk, to be honest. But the consequences were very different, it seems. I started to see Amazon has decided to cancel a Clarence Thomas documentary. So we've gone from the political to the social, and from the social now to business. So it's not staying within politics. It's jumping around. But it's jumping like a little cricket. It's not predictable which direction it's going to go and how long it's going to take to get there and how long it will stay in that place. Whether it's schools or businesses or the media, it's jumping around. And that's why I'm not going to use the term push back, because I that's not what I'm attempting to do. I'm going to say my lens has been focused on understanding and trying to understand by listening, by engaging, by reading, by talking to people. What is the driving force? We had a discussion before the show tonight about the title because we were going different directions. Because, and I'm going to say it on this show, I don't believe that the right is a racist perspective and has a racist perspective. I don't believe that. The right is composed of people that have ideological views that lean towards larger concepts, small government, individual liberties, you stay out of my lane, I'll stay out of yours, more individual perspective, traditional family values, pro-life perspectives tend to typically be pretty pro-Second Amendment, definitely very pro-First Amendment. But that's where they are. I don't see them as racist. because I don't see them as using race as the channel to get their message. Now, I'm probably going to scare off our listeners when I say this, or hopefully not. I say that in jest, of course, but I don't view the left that way either. I don't think that Democrats and those on the left are necessarily any more or less racist is the term I'd use. What I do believe the variation comes in is that the left has found a channel to articulate themselves and to bring about political influence by racializing subjects, bringing us back to what I was talking about earlier, jumping from education to business to politics to the media. And they found a way to develop a narrative, to distribute the narrative, to reinforce the narrative, and then to codify the narrative. And that's what I think is happening.
So let me just make certain I'm hearing you right. You don't think the left is racist. You just think they found a way to use racism to their political advantage.
I want to be careful when I say to use racism, because racism to me is let me give you another example. Okay. Nazism was an ism. Nationalism is not a bad thing. Socialism, though I do not support socialist perspectives, socialism in construct did not give you Adolf Hitler. So we have to be careful when we start playing at words. No, I don't believe that they are good at articulating racism. I think they are good at utilizing the channels of racialism, racial identity, and identity politics. That's what I think the left has learned how to, as I said, how to generate, how to distribute, how to inculcate and codify. That's what I think they've done. And they've done it through a channel because they've seen it as effective. I genuinely believe if they could find another channel that they found more productive, they would pursue that channel. Where I
agree with that. But
where I believe the difference is that the right, I think, in my perspective, has been more historically driven by what most people I think would accuse the right of. Your old-fashioned traditional values, family values, church-driven ideologies. And I think that's kind of, from what I've experienced, that's pretty accurate. I don't see the right one day going, by the way, you know what we were totally wrong on? Christianity, right? Like, I don't see that changing. I don't see them changing their views on things like the Second Amendment. Maybe over time things will mold and they'll go back and forth and they'll do whatever, because it's not the Second Amendment to own a gun. It's the right for self-preservation and protection. It's the underlying ideology. To the left, where I think there's a fundamental difference between the ideological perspectives of these two groups, is that one, I believe, is not hindered, excuse me, I absolutely used the wrong word. One is substantiated, supported, ingrained, driven, inspired, surrounded, penetrated with the idea of traditional, of history, of culture. The other is driven, I think, by result, by immediacy, by cause and effect.
There is no truth but power.
Well, I mean, from a Christian perspective, I would push back on that one, actually.
Well, no, but that is the left's ideology, is what you're talking about.
I don't even necessarily see. Again, you're giving credit to the fact that they have some well-defined thing. I don't. Let me clarify for myself here. I don't believe the left has any cemented ideology about anything. They have an objective.
And so then let's stop for a second. What is that objective?
That objective is built, well, from your perspective, you may say, well, it's built upon accumulating power, and maybe through the political lens it is. I would say through things like Antifa, I don't think that it's about power. I think it's about anarchy. I think it's about the destruction and destabilization of power. I think it's about this search for this utopian society.
Well, so hold on. I don't want to get too far afield here, but let's point back. Antifa is not about anarchy. It is about destroying the system, but it's not about no system. Anarchy means no hierarchy.
I think
Antifa is a socialist and a Marxist group. They state that publicly.
That's fine, but a lot of people state a lot of things, and they use titles of words they don't even know, and they don't know. Antifa, by definition, can say whatever they want to say. They are an anarcho anti-cap movement, period. The funny thing about them is they use the phrase anti-fascist while using fascist tactics to implement their will. But they are actually
hold on. You know what the wall, the Berlin Wall. You know what it was called, right? No. In German, if you were in Eastern Germany, it was the anti-fascist defense wall. Socialists have long pointed to fascism as sort of capitalism as fascism, democracy as fascism. That is their trope. It always has been. But I don't want to go too far afield. Tonight, I want to focus on the left and race. So I go back to so you don't believe that they are racist. You just think this is that their use of race, the way they approach race in America very specifically, is simply nothing more than a tool that they have found to be effective. Is that correct?
And again, this is a topic that probably could have involved us taking weeks to prepare rather than simply hours. And so I want to be careful in the definitions that I use, not because I'm afraid of the words that I'm using, but because I think that there's a level of digestion that's necessary for us to really engage the sinews of how this all works. I don't necessarily believe in my heart of hearts, as a human on this planet, that the people that I know, left, right, and center, are driven by their racist tendencies. That's not what I observe. What I have observed are people that I know on the left who have personally, I have been in the room when it's happened, utilized concepts of race and identity for political or argumentative advantage. Many of my contacts, friends, family, teammates that identify more center-right, I've never experienced them doing that. I have experienced people doing that on the other side. And in fact, in the last 5 to 10 years, it has become almost one of the exclusive talking points of argumentation. And I am going to push this here. I'm going to take this a step deeper in this and say this, but it wasn't necessarily race that they were pushing. What they were pushing was an oppressed perspective.
Correct. And that is the new.
So if you want to say is one side using race, yes, they're using race to form the boundary between the oppressed and the oppressor. That right. I will say. Yes.
Classic Marxism is proletariat versus the bourgeoisie.
Sure. Do I firmly think that one side has weaponized that to a capacity exponentially more than the others? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And do you think it's, again, this goes back to, and this is where I'm going to disagree with you. I think it is racist to do such a thing. I think this, now, again, I agree with you. I don't think that's because they actually care. Again, I don't care about caring. I don't care what they think in their hearts and minds. What I care about is what you do. I think if you are willing to do something in public, that is what you are. If you are willing to use and to generate race, what I would argue is a racist argument, if you're going to use that, if you're going to capitalize on it, if you're going to use that to empower yourself, then you are a racist. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you hate someone.
So then
But again,
let me play the community cynic here. Maybe this is
okay.
maybe what I've left out is let me play the community cynic, okay? And for our friends and family out there that know me, this is, I'm not trying to be Mickey Mouse here, but like I try to be an optimistic person. I don't think people who know me would necessarily say I come across as a great cynic. But let me say it this way. Let me say it this way. I believe racists, true people that are driven by their racial identity, hatred, whatever perspective you want to align with it, I believe they're convicted by that belief. Would you agree to that point?
To a degree, yeah, I would agree with that.
That's fine. I mean, you don't see a lot of KKK members out there because they weren't able to join their community softball team. Can we at least say that?
Oh yeah, no, okay. Yeah, no.
Someone they didn't end up there accidentally. They were ideologically driven, and they were aligning with that. Okay, here's what I'm saying. Call me the great cynic, but this is what I'm saying. I don't believe that many of these people that you're seeing this garbage come down the pipe with the language and everything that they're doing in these hurtful ways regarding race. I don't believe they are driven out of their conviction for racial equality or anything. I don't believe they possess that kind of conviction. I don't have faith that they possess that kind of conviction. I believe that they see it as a channel to utilize and grasp power. Therefore, ironically, in their great attempt, whether you want to call this a Marxist movement or whatever you want to call it, that's fine. Their great strategy is, hey, every dictator's used this for all time. If you just give me the power, I'll make sure you're okay.
So when they look at Senator Tim Scott and they call him Uncle Tim,
he's a roadblock. He's a roadblock to their narrative.
And so what you're saying though is they're using racism as a tool. Whether they are racist themselves is irrelevant. They are using racist tools in order to obliterate a particular roadblock. And for Tim Scott, it's the fact that he is black. That's the roadblock. If it was a white if it was a white senator, let's say they would have said he's a white they would have said he's white supremacist.
No, you have a very, very credible argument you're forming, and I'm not trying to undermine it when I say this. No, you're saying, because you're the type of man that would stand out in public and say this is what I believe, and you're saying, wait a minute, if they're using racist tactics, how are they not racist? Sure, but what I'm saying is that more than they're racist, because I don't believe they possess that conviction, and I'm talking about those who are really warped by the conviction. I get what you're saying. One point. Okay. Where I do think they're driven is in being identitarians, and what they're doing is they're seeing, by utilizing the identity politics model that has been constructed. That's what they're pushing on. We made this argument before about if everybody coming across every border in the world, I don't care where the borders are, it doesn't matter. If they were the opposite of the party in power, it would be fought to the end of the world. If they were in support of the party in power, it would be open to the world, right? So when I say that it's not, by the way, I'm not using the term conviction in a good manner. Obviously, I hope people hear the strong sense of cynical irony I'm trying to apply there, but I don't give credit to, and I don't acknowledge any of these people that are trying to use. Now, there are some people that I think are flat out race baiting because that is the tool that they see. What's the saying? When you're a hammer, you see all of your problems as nails. Yep. Like that's exactly, I'm that part. There's a difference there. And there are people out there that are absolutely race baiting. And if you want to say that they're utilizing racist channels for a means, sure. That I can get in more of an alignment with the ideology that they are misrepresenting racial engagements for their own benefit. And that's sinful. It's terrible. But what I think is most dangerous about this, beyond all of these things, is that there was a line that I saw, and I believe Senator Cook himself was quoted as saying it. He said, "They're literally coming after me because of my skin color."
And is that not racist?
Oh,
so let me throw my response at you.
The action is yes. I mean, again, I'm not trying to dodge you, and I don't think you're trying to catch me in some like you need.
Oh, I am. I'm going to catch you.
Okay.
But no. Let me ask this of you. A pyromaniac goes and burns down a building because he likes the fire. He's an arsonist. A guy burns down a building because he wants to get the insurance money. Different ideology, different motivation. He's still an arsonist.
Okay, but when Black Lives Matter members are going out and looting a building and or the KKK goes out and, well, not the KKK, give me another, neo-Nazis go out, whatever group you want to pick, right? Go to every side of the spectrum, okay? Let's look at the riots this summer when many of them were going on, when people were smashing in windows and stealing things out of stores, and sometimes they would be set on fire. Were they set on fire because they were love of being arsonists, or were they causing chaos and anarchy?
No, but they were still causing chaos in Arcan. I can't say the word, but that still makes them arsonists. My point is, if you are knowingly using racism and racist ideologies and racist claims in order to achieve power, you are racist. Now, is it because you're in your heart a racist, or is it just simply the tool that's available? I don't fundamentally care.
Well, but I think there's a word for that.
I can't. Okay.
That's racialism. You're racializing all these things. You're race baiting. You're doing whatever you want to talk about. See, and forgive me, because if we're getting too into the weeds on this, and it's just that I take words at meaning, and I know you do as well. But I'm saying I want us to be careful and thoughtful. When we were in pre-production, we had a kind of a good chat about this as well. Like, we have never wanted this show to be like, see how crazy they are, and just throw around words, right? Because words can be very dismissive if we're not considerate to the level of what we want to say. When I say to you, I don't see the right or the left as a definition of being driven by racist ideology, I mean that. However, I do see the left absolutely weaponizing, utilizing, and driving a racialist identity politics perspective at Mach 5. There's a
and you don't see that as being, and you don't see that as being racist.
I think the action, I think the language, yes, again, as I said in my previous statement, but I don't think it comes with the conviction that someone of an actual racist may do. Now, where I do see something that President Obama used to speak of was the concept of the the soft bigotry of low expectation. That is something. If we want to talk about bigotry and we want to talk about racism, we want to talk about that, sure. I will say to anybody that'll listen to me that I think it is absolutely insulting, unfair, inaccurate, and limiting upon people to say something like, well, getting a voter ID is harder for some people. Okay, you just said that people that made it through hundreds of years of these struggles have risen in the society to do this, to have some of the most family committed, driven, loyal, successful, unbelievably patriotic people in the world struggle because you've asked them to get a piece of plastic, or even worse, that the country itself doesn't want to align the security of its elections because it feels as though this is something this is the bigotry that we're trying to oversee. Give me a break. That just sounds stupid as I say it out loud. That's just ignorant.
But let's go back to Tim Scott for a second. This is my entire point. You said all of the flack that he's catching, right, for coming out, making his statements. You point out that to younger people that can cause them to commit suicide in the strain that he's under. He's a senator. He signed up for this. But let me point this out. Do you really think it's him that they're trying to intimidate? Or is it every other black child and every other black male and every other black female of any age in this country to say, don't get out of line. You belong to us. I think belong to this ideology.
No, I'll be honest. I think we both have a problem with what happened today, but I think it's from different perspectives. I think, to be completely honest, I'm going to push back on this a little. That sounds a little medieval. That sounds really, really, really. If we're at the point that things have become that oppressively challenging to people, I think what it is, from my perspective, and this is looking at it through the media lens, I think what it is this deflates the narrative in a lot of ways, and we don't want to do it. Again, we've spoken on this show about the value of identity, and I mean true value and who it is that you see yourself as and how you actualize yourself and how you interpret who you are as a person. The very valuable, credible things about humanity and our identity. But when you try to take that away from someone, well, Tim Scott's not black. Well, Tim Scott's not really black. Well, Tim Scott's not this. Tim Scott's not this. Tim Scott, he's an Uncle Tom because he decided to speak about this.
And those are the nice things they said about him.
But I'm saying is, look, here, let's call the balls and strikes here. Let's put into category 1 and 2. You and I are in perfect alignment. That what happened was not only, and let's start with words that have been undervalued in our society, but I think truly matter. Well, what number one, what happened was cruel. It was unkind. It was untrue. It was vicious. It was deliberate. It was designed to hurt. It was designed to be divisive. Nothing good can come of those things.
But here's my question. Was it designed to hurt him, or was it designed to hurt everyone else?
I think collateral damage, the more the merrier, right? But in times of oppression, isn't that when people shine the brightest?
Well, but that's not the topic. The topic, because here's the problem. You said words have meanings. I completely agreed. I couldn't agree more. We have to properly, but here's the thing. If you don't know, you have to use the right words to assign for the right things. Again, completely agree. But if we don't use the right terms, then we're never going to achieve an end. The end for this episode is not to sit here and say, well, was it racist? Was it not? The question is, how do we address it? But my problem here is, and this goes back to, okay, let's go back to why, when you intimidate somebody, right? It's to have a higher ideal, right? There's a higher goal, a higher purpose. We may not agree with it, but that is there. Would you agree with that? The reason they're calling him out isn't because they have a problem with what he said. It's because of who he is, right?
Well, let me pose it. Let me do the worst thing you can ever do. Let me answer a question with a question. Would it impact the response that we're getting if we were to find out that the person that originally said this quote was white or black?
Which quote?
No, Tim, whoever originally used that term towards Tim Scott, if you were to hear that it was originally sent by a black person.
Well, the problem is it's been sent by black and white people.
That's right. But that's what I'm saying. You can see that there's probably different terminology that's being utilized for different reasons. Right.
Well, but that's my whole point. The point is, it is designed to keep people of a particular skin color in a place. It is to hold on to them. It is not just the narrative is not the narrative's sake. The narrative is to retain power. That is your whole premise, right? Is it those on the left who are using racial ideologies as a weapon? They're using it simply to retain power? That is your premise, correct?
I don't know that I even drafted it so far as to think about it as some massive premise, other than to just say, I think that if it were Tim Scott or anyone else, I think that what they're attacking is him being a conservative. What they're attacking is that his personal beliefs are being torn down because the expectation that has been presented is that he's breaking from that prescribed formula, which is inherently the problem that I have, is telling any person or group of people they have to think or feel a certain way based off of characteristics that they have no control over. That's okay. Because again, this impedes individual liberty, which at its core is my fundamental perspective on all things.
Exactly. So then my question is that not racist? If I look at you and I say you're white, therefore you have to go by XYZ, is that not racist?
Ironically, it highlights the very thing that that the left always seems to want to attack, which is the concept of the Marxist perspective and the perspective you were talking about it earlier, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, the oppressor and the oppressed. So let me give you an example. I'm not trying to dodge your question, but let me give you an example. What if we changed it and said all of a sudden it's because he was Jewish? So now it's anti-Semitic. So that's cultural.
Well, except that being, again, anti-Semitic, coming from the word Semitism, it's a race. I mean,
fine. But it also carries with it an inherent religious context to it, right?
Well, but except that Judaism, Catholicism, Protestantism, Hinduism Islam, these all have ideologies behind them. They all
Right.
have
Exactly. All that I'm saying is it's not tied to race. I'm trying to just change the lens from focusing on race to make it religious. People could oppress the same way. And they wouldn't say, oh, you're such a racist because you're going after that person. But what we've done now is we've unlocked the key and tried to just carpet bomb every subject in the world with the title of race. How about this? If they went after him because he was disabled, would that then be racial? No, I think. But if they wanted to draw a narrative, that would be something that would be there. When you're seeing people come out, Caitlyn Jenner speaking about political perspectives. This was a champion in the LGBTQ community. I don't want to get too far off, but just, okay, champion in the LGBTQ community comes out, says they want to run as a Republican and gets backlash. Is it because now all of a sudden all those people that were LGBTQ, and I mean major organizations, not just like 3 sad people on Twitter screaming. I'm talking about, organizations that have come together that are publicly presented on behalf of the welfare of the LGBTQ community going after them. Is that because they just flipped and all of a sudden went from being pro-anti or pro-LGBTQ to anti? No, it's that oppressed oppressed. They changed the narrative. They broke the narrative. What do you mean you're going this way? Tim Scott is a target, I think, primarily through the lens of the media because he's a conservative, not because he's black. But when they saw that he was black, because, for example, if he were a Democrat, I don't think they would have said anything.
Of course, they wouldn't have said anything.
If he were a Democrat and would have said some of these same things, it could have led to almost conversation.
Well, not at this point. I think they still would have flipped them.
But they would have said, "Well,
hold on. We're getting apples and oranges here, and you're even kind of. We're back to the original point. Yes, of course, they're going after him because he's conservative, or what he said was conservative. Was
right.
Not even all that conservative. It was just on the right. The reason they're going after him is because he is black. That is the technique. That is the angle of attack that they're using. Is that he is black. I would submit
comments on Twitter were being launched at him from that perspective. But the reason that it's being perpetuated, or the reason that he's a threat, is because his ideologies and because he's a conservative.
Okay, so let's drop the word racist for a moment, because that seems to be your big hang up. You don't want to call someone a racist. I get it.
No, hold on. I don't have a problem using terms that I believe in, as long as I believe that term adequately and accurately applies here. You hold the perspective that you believe that this was a racial smear done by racists for racial gains under a racial lens.
Well, no. I think we agree. This is about political gains and at this point, it is for a particular political party. This is about politics, but I believe that these are politicians and ideologues that are using racism and racist techniques to achieve that power. Again, I agree with you. I don't think racism is the motivating factor. It's the technique. I would argue, though, that if you use racism to achieve your goals, you are a racist. In the same way that, regardless of whether or not you're a pyromaniac or you want the insurance money, if you burn a house down, you are an arsonist.
But you're giving this is where maybe my faux cynic is going to kick in again, right? And I'm going to say to you on this: you are attributing a level of commitment, belief, and ideology to a group of people that I don't believe possesses the capacity for that. I think them believe that they will believe in something until they just don't believe in it anymore, and they'll just flip onto something else. That's it.
That's fine, but that still doesn't make them not racist. Again, so what you're saying is you can make racist claims, you can hold racist standards, you can enforce racist ideologies on people, and not be a racist. That is your claim, right?
No. I think you're looking for like a baseline response for me to give you and say, here is the line in the dirt. What I'm saying is something like racism is extremely sensitive. And it's sensitive because it's not just, pardon the pun, it's not just black and white. Okay, there are a lot of thought and consideration that has to go into this. This is, I mean, if you really want to think about what's happening, America is responding because some random anonymous, ambiguous person on the internet wrote something ignorant and hurtful.
Joy Behar is not some random
I'm not
person
going
on
to.
the internet.
Sure. Why? Because she has a television show? What credibility does Joy Behar have to speak about race in America?
Oh, first of all, Joy Behar doesn't have credibility to speak about a tuna sandwich.
Right. But what
But
she
the fact
does
is,
have is,
she is part of the establishment. She
right.
is part of the she is not just, she's not Bob from Milwaukee that no one has heard of and has 15 followers.
No, what she has is a microphone and a captive audience. And so what we have to be mindful of here is that we have to look at the fact that these organizations are utilizing race. Now, if you want to say that that's racist, like I said before, if you're weaponizing these things and doing these things, then we need to call balls and strikes. Yes. But I think I'm not saying nobody is racist, and I'm not saying everybody is racist. I'm saying it deserves what it's not getting, which is examination. It deserves to understand the facts. Remember when Kavanaugh was going through and he got ripped? Because people were saying, well, let's wait and see what the facts say. And everybody was like, no, that's not what matters. That's what I'm saying. We have to believe. This is where that perspective of conservatism in many of us comes out, where we want to have that hold on. Let's go to the tape. Let's go to the facts. Let's look through this here. Why? Because there's an institution. There's somewhere to go.
Then let's go to the tapes. That's what I'm saying. Let's actually go to the tape here.
Right. So Alex, again, from a perspective of understanding where you're coming from, and I think I do. I hope that I do, and I hope to continue to listen to hear more. I'm not saying that nobody's racist. I'm not saying that everybody's racist. That I'm never going to be one to go, the left are all racists. That's just dangerous. It's limiting and it's inaccurate. Because it's no different. You're being forced to fight a war on the enemy's terms.
Well, I would agree. I'm not saying everyone is racist, but I'm saying that if you're willing to use racist ideology to get to gain your power, if you use racist tools, then there is nowhere else for you to be but a racist. Now, I'm not saying you believe it in your heart. Again, I'm going to be cynical like you. I don't think that they care. I don't think that it's deep down in their heart. I think the only thing they want is power.
Well, and I'm going to rip off one of our fans. Excuse me, I'm going to rip off one of our fans and say what, kind of from the perspective of, let's also consider the difference between an ideology and an act, right? I don't think that, let's look at recent events, right? Look at any footage of the politicians 2 years ago saying it would be a travesty to blow up the court. And now go, oh my gosh, if we don't blow up the court, America is going to just live in a ditch and go cry in a closet, right? So there's no commitment to a belief. It's a commitment to an end result. Do I think that people who wrote these hurtful things might be racist? I don't know them personally, but they might be. Sure. I have to mathematically calculate the probability exists for them to be racist. Sure.
I'm not talking about the idiots on Twitter. I am talking about the president of the United States. You asked where are all these people coming to Senator Tim Scott to his defense to say he has an inalienable human right to have an opinion that differs from mine.
Sure.
He is not a lesser human being. He does not stop being his race because he disagrees with me. You asked, where are they?
Right. No. I asked because here's a good point. Because we live in a culture now, let's be honest, that every voice on Twitter expects to be listened to and heard so that people will respond to it. Joe Rogan made a comment on his show, and the administration from the president of the United States addressed it. Why? Because Joe Rogan has a $100 million contract with Spotify, and he talks to a lot of people. And he's got a big microphone now. So why do we need to do this? So again, let's use the president. Let's use the president of the United States, and I'm going to say it right now. Do I believe in my heart that Joe Biden is not answering and coming out to the people right now and making this massive declaration because he's a racist? Let me flip it. Do you believe he is?
I don't. Yeah, actually, I do.
Okay,
I do think he's a racist.
Okay, I appreciate the straightforwardness. I'm going to disagree. I don't think that he's a racist. I will tell you this. I think he is a weak leader who has a team of people around him that are speaking to him about the different ways that he has to walk this and traverse this tight wire and come down these slides, so that public opinion, so that movements of whether it's BLM or swaths of the African American community or support bases that he feels, or donors or whatever. I think that he's driven by the fact that he wants to see an end result. I think he's driven by the fact that I do not believe that Joe Biden is a racist as a person. I believe he is trying to negotiate what we talked about earlier in the show, the concept of racialism, identity politics. And this is where the bindings of identity politics come to, where you can't free yourself from it, because you paint yourself into this corner where you're going to do it. Real quickly, this is totally aside, but I want to inject it because I think it's important. I saw something earlier today, and it talked about a school that was putting out notifications about the lists of oppressors and the oppressed. And on the list of oppressors, it said things like male, Christian, heterosexual, able-bodied, between the ages, under age 50. And then it went on to things like oppressed, female, disabled, certain socioeconomic status, education levels. So a person wrote back and said, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, because a woman tells me according to your list, I'm a victim, but I'm white, so I'm also an oppressor. But I have a graduate degree, so I'm again an oppressor, but I came from a divorced family, or, I'll throw that in there, so I'm oppressed again. So am I my own worst enemy? Like, you know what I mean? Look at me. You know my family's history. I went through a divorce as a child with my parents, and I'm a Caucasian male. So am I oppressing myself? So I bring this in to say, do you see how? So what happened? You bifurcate a person because you break them down into a series of parts. Look, walking around with a lighter to a Ferrari isn't really impressive, but driving around in one is. You break it down into 52,000 parts, it's just a bunch of parts. It's nothing. So what I'm getting to is that we have broken this down into one specific element. I don't believe that Joe Biden is a racist. I don't. I believe he has embraced fully the concept of racialism in America. And I believe that he has found the means to exercise his will politically, and his parties and his administration's will, through the channels of identity politics. And until that burns out, that will be what I think you're going to see a tactic used, until people push back on it. And it's funny because just earlier tonight, I was watching an episode of The Office, where they were making The Office, not from 1906. I'm talking about 2005. You would see comments and stuff made like, oh my gosh, how are they not being boycotted? So I come back to the point to say, we have to intricately look at the difference between ideology and action. And I think that those can be separate, fortunately or unfortunately.
So okay, just a step back. When Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Do you think he meant that, or do you think someone gave him that line and he just?
I think he absolutely gun-decked that from his mouth in an attempt to be Mr. Cool Guy in touch with pop culture, who definitely proved that he was neither.
And now, you don't see that as being racist. Just to believe that
I see it as racial pandering. I see it as racialism, and I see it as someone engaging in trying to, in the purest sense of what a politician is, do whatever it takes to earn the vote.
So
I think it undermined a community. I think it absolutely personified the soft bigotry of low expectation. I think it missed the mark on truly connecting with people that wanted to listen to someone who may have had something interesting and intelligent to say.
Okay, and first of all, let's stop right there. Joe Biden has never had anything interesting or intelligent to say.
Right. But what I'm saying is that it missed the mark on something that could have been used as some type of tactic there. And that's why when you see all the other channels with people coming out and doing it, they're doing it for quick, cheap, and laughs. You know why? I'll give you the perfect point. If a conservative comedian made a joke about it, they'd be blasted. If a liberal comedian like Jimmy Kimmel makes a joke about it, you're not going to see anything. If Tucker Carlson did it, they'd be petitioning at his show and trying to get him not only kicked off the air, but have his advertisers demonetized and everybody.
So my question is this. if you look at a person, you say you don't have the right to say that because of your skin color, are you enacting racialism or is that racist?
So to me, the two words are different. And I'm going to draw from a salty one here. I like this concept of looking at something like an ideology versus that of an act.
Okay, so hold on. So for you, racism is an ideology exclusively, and everything else is racialism or another thing. But you look at racism as an ideology, whereas I'm saying racism is an act.
Oh, okay. So, wow. It was funny. We were going to have a short show, but I think tonight should go as long as it needs for us to get this. Yes, this is a good point. This is a very good point. It only took us 51 minutes into the show to get to it. This is
live. I'm trying to figure out, like, what the hell are you arguing with me about over this? It's like, why don't you want to call someone racist if they're being racist?
Yes, well, but I mean, and I'm grateful for a salty one here tonight putting this in here because I think that this is the perspective. Yes. Race. Let me use words from my playbook. Okay. Racialism. A salty one's using terms like ideology and act. Let me use words on mine. Okay. And I'm gonna draw from him. So I want the royalty monies, all 11 cents, to go to him. I'm gonna say this. The difference between a governing ideology and that of some would call an act. I would say, if you want to look at something from the perspective of, and I want to think it out as it comes out, where we're struggling tonight in this part is it you're like, wait a minute, we're having it looks like a great pushback here and forth, and it's funny is that we agree in many ways on a lot of these things, but here's the thing. I look at something from the lens of whether it is a fundamental element of someone's driving ideology, belief structure, thought process, existence, being. And then I look at other things in relation to action. And even a better word, I had it, and I'm not going to lie, I had it and I lost it. But it's not just action. It would be something like utilization intent. Here we go. It's the difference between intention, and maybe utilization. I think Joe Biden utilizes racialism for a political gain. I don't know the man, so I mean I can't make that judgment, empirically, but I don't have evidence to presume at this point with confident belief that Joe Biden is driven in his racism towards making decisions the way someone like, before he came to certain awakenings, we'll call it, someone like George Wallace did, right? I think that we need, or was known for, I should say. I think we need to be careful in that. Let me flip the coin for a second. You heard for 4 years, nonstop, that Donald Trump was legitimately one of the most encapsulating racist, just embodiment of all things devastatingly terrible about racism. What actions did you ever see of his that you thought were racist?
Honestly, none. And that's my point.
Okay, so your point is rooted in the action. I agree with you, by the way, so that we can have more common ground on this. I do believe that action supports and defines where you may stand on certain things. However, sometimes I don't necessarily believe that an act defines the intentionality, the entirety, and the ideology of something.
Okay, so let me respond by saying yes. I think everyone obviously people can make mistakes, people can have changes of heart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All agree. This is why I started the entire thing off by saying I don't care what's in someone's heart. Okay, stop. Pause.
This is our fundamental difference. I very much care what's in someone's heart, and I don't.
Well, hold on. I mean, I do.
I don't mean that in some touchy-feely way. I mean, I'm very driven. Okay, a little touchy feely because let's be honest, it's me. But I very much care about the intention. I very much care about the ideology. I very much care about those inner workings. Maybe we have a difference there. Maybe we have a difference there.
My caring, and so let me explain this. I care from an academic perspective. If, however, your actions are inherently, again, if you are doing a racist thing, then you are a racist. Now you may not, that may not be what's in your heart. You may be doing it for different reasons. Again, let's go back to the arson thing. The pyromaniac and the guy who wants the insurance money, they have two completely different motivating factors. For me, it's what are you doing? If you are behaving as a racist, then you are a racist. Now, you may not be a racist in your heart. You may see it as having political advantages, and I agree with you. I don't think most of these people walk around saying, "Man, I hate black people." I don't think they're saying that. I don't, however, think that they care. I think that they are looking for power. I agree with you on that. They want power. They have other ideas. This is just a tool for them. They are weaponizing racialism. But if in your pursuit of power, you will use racist techniques, racist ideologies, racist threats, then you are a racist. Now, you would say he's someone who uses racialism. Would that be the difference? You don't see them as a racist. You see them as using racialism. Is that the difference?
I can't just define some line without looking at the totality of it. What I would say is this. I think that there are times when, let me step back here. I believe there are people who are racists. I believe they are motivated by or driven by their ideology, and they execute and carry out that ideological perspective through action. I very much believe that.
Okay, and we agree with that. So
I also believe there are other people that are very ambitious people who will utilize any tactic. Now, if you want to say, hold on a second, if they utilize tactics that involve race, that makes them a racist. Okay, again, I wouldn't even necessarily push back on that because you're right. Your actions are an expression of your beliefs in many cases. Not all. To your point, if someone were to break into my house and I shot someone, I would technically say, well, I've killed somebody. I haven't committed murder. It was more self-defense, but I've killed someone. But it's deeper than that, right? If I shoot a gun in the air and like, woohoo, the Wild West, bang, and I shoot a gun in the air and the bullet falls, God forbid, hits somebody, technically I'm a murderer. So we have to look at and I provided a ridiculous example to prove.
Well, but here's the
we have to dig in.
Right. No, hold on. Let's stop right there because actually your point is exactly why we're differing. You are looking at the action and saying but what you gave me were two different actions. Let's make the action. That's my point. Is you're looking at the intent. But the intent in both of your examples is creating two different actions. Shooting someone in self-defense who's broken into your home is a radically different action from randomly firing rounds into the sky. Would you say they are clearly two different actions, correct?
Sure. One's deliberate, one's unintentional. Yeah. That was my point was simply there's a difference between someone breaking into a house and murdering someone and someone, again, I'm making up a ridiculous example, right? Shooting. Okay, you're going hunting and you miss the bird and the round flies off and God forbid hurts somebody. Okay, purely unintentional. And that's why the court system has what it has. What I'm getting at is I don't think that when the left looks to the right many times, and I'm talking about the hard left, the vocal left, the Twitter mafia, and they're coming after people. They're painting with a broad stroke brush. I think it's dangerous to enter that level of dialogue because I think that's a lower tier. That's a simpler reductionist perspective. Well, leftists are all crazy. Leftists are all racist. What did they call us? They called us stupid. Leftists are all stupid. Like, I know you are, but what am I? Diplomacy doesn't work. I think we have to look at finding a way to examine the situation. Now, I don't support what was done about Senator Scott. I will say right here purposely that I condemn it entirely. Not that I have to do that because I don't have to virtue signal that across the internet. If you know who I am as a person, you know where I stand on this. It's very simple. I don't need to make declarations about it. But in the age of the internet, it feels like you kind of do, doesn't it? Kind of like we were saying, Joe Biden has to respond to Twitter handle, big punch bowl 115, like whatever I mean. And that's ridiculous. But that's
right. I'm not going to sit here and call out ladies man 2316. I forget the number. That's a Transformers reference for the win. But hold on, let's take this back, because this is why I want. Yeah, let me bring this back here to why what drove me to what really got me this morning. Again, I was going to call the radio show. Why? A gentleman had called in. He had been talking to his cousin the night before about this event, about the Tim Scott thing. And his liberal cousin said, Tim Scott, when he said, don't you think it is racist to call Tim Scott an Uncle Tom? He came back with, no, because he is an Uncle Tom. That's my point. The left, which is the ideology that is, if you're a black conservative, real quick who's on the left. I have friends, vocal friends who've gotten beaten up because they're black and had a MAGA hat on. Go look at Eric July's comments. You'll find them real quick. You can go look at the comment section of any black conservative, and you will find every racial epithet that has ever been created, and it's coming from black people and white people, and they're all liberal. Again, yes, because this is conservative. This really isn't racial. That's the thing. The reason for the conflict is
who are racially driven. I absolutely
hold on, but my point here is, yeah, I agree with you. It is politics that is the driving factor. That's why they are attacking him. That's not my point.
Oh, no. I also believe that there are those who are, as I said before, I do believe that there are racists that are legitimately attacking people that have that racist ideology. I absolutely believe that.
Stop agreeing with me.
No, yeah, well, it's ignorant to say that there are none. I'm not
saying
there are people that don't have, a third kidney. I mean, yes, but I'm saying here in Texas, you're just seeing a story pop right now that a representative out of Texas is coming up, and he's a Democrat. He's coming up. He's been requested. He's already facing calls to step down because he decided he thought it'd be wise to call Tim Scott an Oreo. I mean, yeah. That's just stupidity wrapped in ignorance, wrapped in cruelty. Is he racist? Sure looks like it. I mean, he certainly. I mean, but again, and this may frustrate you when I come from this perspective. I believe that sometimes people say many stupid things, not because their heart inside, which I believe only God knows, is where they are. But if they choose to take that action, okay. I would have no problem saying to that person, you're racist for saying that, or that was a racist thing to say, because that's a true statement. I'm for crying out loud, the guy is the Democratic Party chair for Lamar County. This isn't some random person who doesn't have anything to do with politics. The guy is in Texas, which is a hotbed for politics, and he's the Lamar County Democrat Party chair.
I'm not really surprised.
And he's out there referring to a sitting. Again, you know me for many years, and you know where my perspectives lie when it comes to this. The respect you show the office. It's why I don't refer to Joe Biden outside of his name, which as a fellow American, I feel okay. And I will refer to him as the president, and I acknowledge he is the president. That's fine. I don't use other statements or comments about him.
I do.
Tim Scott is a senator. Tim Scott is a sitting senator in the United States Senate. That alone warrants its respect because of the chair. Because I respect my country. And I'm not saying that because I'm some goody two-shoes. I'm simply saying that's a raised, and that's the perspective I have. So when this gentleman comes out and he blasts off something that's not only stupid, but ignorant, hurtful, and it's a racist comment. All I'm saying is that when we tack on that extra 6 inches, does that mean, to dive a little deeper, you're a parent. Your children have probably said things before that you were like, and I know them and I love them. I think they're amazing. I don't think it would ever be racist, but they've probably said or done things before that you were like, what? and then they step back and go, wait, what? That's all that I'm saying. That doesn't end in childhood, and I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm saying it requires that extra 5 minutes to look in deeper. That's it. Now, is what this gentleman said racist? Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely, without question.
so let's stop right there because we agree. That was a racist comment that was made, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you make the claim, then, would you agree with the statement? It is a racist act or a racist statement to be made that is made when you say you don't have the right to say or to have a belief that is different from this party because of your race, because of your skin color. Is that a racist claim that is made? Or is a racist position?
I mean, I see where you're coming from, and I'm not trying to make it complicated when I lean back and say that just sounds like it's oppressive, because I could substitute anything in there and say that it's that the theme driving it is oppression and control. Perfect example. You don't have a right to vote that way because you're a woman. You don't have a right to vote that way because you're black. You don't have a right to vote that way because you're gay. You don't have a right to vote that way because you're Catholic. You don't have a right to vote that way because you're short. You can apply it across.
Although that is true, we don't want short people voting in particular ways
with their lower centers of gravity. I'm so jealous. No, but what I'm getting at is all of it is rooted in ignorance and bigotry.
Thank you. So my point here is there is the position that if you are a black person, you do not have the right to have a different opinion from the Democrat Party. And let's be real honest. Normally, trust me, as we have said plenty of times, I don't really have a lot of use for a lot of the Republicans in office right now. I just don't. This is not a Republican-Democrat thing. But no one has ever said you don't have the right to have a Republican position because you're whatever. However, whenever a black conservative stands up and says, I believe XYZ, they are immediately shouted down as being not black. Their race is called into question. Eric July has a great quote on this. He said, when I was a gangbanger, when I was beefing and causing trouble in the black community, no one ever once called me inauthentic. But the second I became libertarian, I was inauthentically black. I was a bootlicker. I was an Uncle Tom. I was all the other epithets that he has given.
This is a great example. So they're using racist comments and attacks. But what I think they're trying to do in the underlying driving mechanism is subvert his identity. When I've used this example before and it sounded ridiculous then, and it's going to sound ridiculous now. When Kanye West came out in support of Donald Trump, Snoop Dogg put up a Photoshop picture of him that he was white.
Correct.
Saying, well, I can take this away from you. You don't belong to the black community. You're excommunicated. You're rejected. You're not embracing what it means to be black. You have gone against what we stand for. Whatever Snoop Dogg's intentions were. And again, I told you guys before, it sounded weird when I said it a couple months ago. It sounds weird now. To use Snoop Dogg in the political realm, but here we are. What I'm getting
we are in the darkest timeline.
When they went after these people, they're utilizing. Let's use this. Let's use Snoop Dogg and Kanye. Is Snoop Dogg? Because I don't ascribe to the concept that you can't be racist if you're a minority. Like, I don't believe that. I believe anybody can be racist. I believe anybody can be sexist. Anybody can be ignorant. Anybody can be brilliant. Anybody can be short or tall. Whatever. What I'm getting at is the effect that they were going for was a stripping of identity. They just so happen to relate and utilize race as the defining factor. Let me ask you a quick question. You don't have to answer online because it's probably very personal, but if you had to pick one identifying quality, factor, recognition, belief, alignment of who you are as a person, and I think I already know the answer, what would you say it is?
Oh, it's my Christian.
It's your faith. I would say that without hesitation, knowing you for several decades, right?
Because it's what I chose. It is something I chose. It is not it's not something that I was born with. It is something that I have actively chosen. That's my identity. But that's an American concept.
We can also agree that faith belongs to anyone who chooses it just as equally, right?
Absolutely.
It belongs to anybody. But if someone were to come after you and try to discredit you through your faith, rather than your race, which one do you think you would be defensive of?
Oh, yeah, no, it'd be if someone were to say you're not a Christian because XYZ, that would be far more offensive to me than you're not white because you believe this.
Sure.
But here's the thing. But hold on, this goes back to my point. If someone were to, let's say, there's a poster that goes up tomorrow, or in fact, you know what? Let's bring it back to Joy Behar and Snoop Dogg. They're having tea on The View, and Joy Behar's like, you know who ain't white? That former cracker Alex Keaton. He's not white because he believes because he believes in vouchers, and he votes Republican or Libertarian whenever he gets the chance.
Sure.
That he is not white. And Snoop Dogg's like, Joy Behar, thank you for agreeing with me. That former cracker ain't really white. He's something else. Is there anyone in the world who would not look at them and say, first of all, what the heck are you two doing together? But then secondly, follow up with, what does this matter? What do you mean? His being white has nothing to do with his voting record, right, or his ideology.
So let's lay the bridge here between our two arguments, because I don't think that they're diametrically opposed. I think that we're drilling down in different areas, right? As my friend used to say, with the same barbecue, we're just doing our sauces differently. Let me say it like this. We both find racism in every element. Not only, I mean, literally, scripturally, a sin to look upon anyone else without love, but we look at it as socially, personally, culturally, religiously, and every other isly adverb that we can think of as abhorrent. That's a given. And anyone who knows us knows that. There's no question, and there's no reason that we have to dig any deeper in that. That's they know us. They either know our hearts or they don't. And that's it. However, we are in a time when that chink in the armor has been found, and that element has been exposed, and that wound is going to fester the longer we pick at it. And we have found that social and political responses can be generated. And not only that, Alex, but let's be very important. Let's be very detailed here. But those responses can be generated very quickly, which is something very unique in politics, right? You can generate that response very quickly by going through the political means, whether it's court trials or elections or rallies or riots or whatever. The response is much more in real time than anything else in politics. In fact, our government's designed for things to slow down so that they're not made rashly. But what we've seen is that people have jumped in to stir the pot because they can get a reaction out of it. And the argument that I think we're making here is, what is that driving element? If I'm hearing you correctly, and if I've listened to you tonight, you're saying if they're taking upon themselves the free will and the choice to act in a racist manner, they are therefore racists themselves. And I'm simply saying, somewhat tangentially, but I think traveling down the same highway, there are many, again, call this my faux cynic, there are many who see a means to accomplishing their ends. And whether it burns down the castle or displaces a million, they're going to do it, whether it's isolating or not, because they want an end result, whether it's cruel, whether it's whatever, because their political agenda at this point almost requires them, in a saddening perspective of where our politics are. And my point is, are they utilizing I believe they are utilizing this racialism and utilizing identity politics to do so. Do I think that the language they're using is potentially racist and charged and cruel, like we're seeing out of this representative in this Democrat Party chair in Texas? Sure. Do I know that he is a racist in his heart? No, I don't know his heart, but I'm disappointed by the actions he's taken. And what he has done has been to utilize racist language. Do I think that every person that has done that, it's because fundamentally they are driven as a racist? I don't I don't believe that I possess the insight into their heart to say that I know that. What I do possess as a citizen of this country through the First Amendment is my right to challenge them to that so that I can possibly uncover that. And what I don't want to do is lower my position in the argument to just blanketly addressing people and entire groups of people off of something that I feel. I'd rather be able to be in a position to step back, engage the material, learn it, provide it, prove it, and then know unquestionably. But again, the end result is the same. We both want there to root out the racist tactics that are being used and the racism and racialism that's being used. All of it. I want someone to go and apologize. I mean, I literally want to see. I mean, you want to talk about racial tendencies being. Think about what it would be like if the president of the United States called him into the office and said before the entire country, "This is not acceptable." That's what I wish.
And I would join you in that. Let me stop you right there. I would join you in that. Nothing would make me happier if he were to come out and say, I disagree firmly with Tim Scott with everything that he said, because he said, you heard my speech, you know we are diametrically opposed, but this man as a human being in this country has the right to his beliefs. His beliefs do not make him less black. It does not change what he has endured, what he has suffered, what he has publicly talked about. It means that we disagree. It does not make him less than human. It does not make him a race traitor.
Actually,
I would love
heard about Tim Scott. I've heard nothing but good things. That he's a good man. He's honorable. He loves his family. He's a good friend. He's a good son. He sounds like a remarkable guy. I'm not super well versed in. I know that he worked on the crime bill and they filibustered it. So how funny is that?
Exactly. Well, it's not even funny, but he goes back to your point about them just pursuing power. My point is, I would love for the president of the United States to come out here and say that. But this is where this is where we will differ. Only in degrees of ingredients in the sauce. He won't, because as he said as our president of the United States publicly stated, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. He does. Does he actually believe that? All I can say is I don't know what his heart is. This is why I offer forgiveness for everyone. Everyone gets bad days. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone changes their minds. I am willing to forgive just about anything. But I have to take you at your word. If you say racist things, if you support racist policies, if you perpetuate racialism, racial identitarianism as a motivating factor for someone's ideology and their behaviors, then I have no other option than to treat you as a racist. I will pray that you will change your mind. But I look at a party that says black people are not able to get driver's license because they're not capable of it. When they say voter ID is racist, because they're saying it's because black people are incapable of getting driver's license. When the Michaela Bryant, when they say, and I'm going to quote right here, again, this is not just some random person, but a civil rights activist who made this statement. Oh, dang it, I just lost the thing. Her response to the Michaela Bryant shooting, the woman who, the young lady who had a butcher knife and was in the process of stabbing another young woman to death when she was shot in order to save the other woman's life. The argument was, here it is. It's by Bree Newsom, who is a prominent activist. Teenagers have been having fights involving knives for eons. We do not need police to address these situations by showing up to the scene and using a weapon against one of the teenagers. She then followed up with, y'all need help. I mean that sincerely. When you say that black children should not be held to the same account as if as a white or an Asian or Hispanic child. When you say, I'm sorry, this test is biased against black people, therefore we need to lower or we need to remove the test, it's because you believe that black children cannot live up to that. I say all of it is racist. I am looking at policies that are run by the Democrat Party, perpetuated by the left, that are racist policies. That's why I'm not surprised that it was the head of the Lamar County Democratic chair who said that. That's why I'm not surprised when Democrats come out and say racist things against Candace Owens, against Clarence Thomas, against did I say Larry Elder already? Thomas Sowell, uh, any of any Michael Steele. When they say that, when their supporters say racist things, I'm not surprised. I can only say it's because in the left is the home for policies that are racist, overtly racist. Racial identitarianism is racism. End of story. Now, does that mean everyone in their heart of hearts is sitting around thinking about how much they dislike people of a particular color? I don't think that's the case. Again, this is where the sauces are different. I can only treat you and I can only look at you and say, what are you on the outside? What are you doing in the world? If we are bringing more racism and conflict, I have to assume it's because you want it. And while we were setting this up, I started looking at numbers. Again, one of those dreaded things. Democrat cities in poverty, Democrat cities in violent crime. For the top 50 major U.S. cities that have acts of violent crime, Detroit was the highest. This is the most recent numbers. This is from 2020. Or at least the article is from 2020. Violent crime. So it's 20 acts of violent crime for every 1,000 people. It was 20 acts for Detroit, and that was number one. We have to skim all the way down to number 28, which is Battle Creek, Michigan, with 12 acts of violence per 1,000 people before we hit the first Republican-run city. Poverty rate. Detroit, Michigan, also the highest, 36.4%. Obviously Democrat run. The first time a Republican city shows up is Miami, Florida, 15. Now, Miami actually just became Republican more recently, but still, it's number 15. And there just aren't as many Republican-run major cities that have such high poverty versus Democrat. Same thing with violence. My question would be this: if your policies, and this is not Republican Democrat, but I do think, unfortunately, right now the ideologies are splitting so much that there is nowhere else to go. I see the left as having a great amount of racist policies because it does disproportionately affect the Black community and minority communities, and it's not for the better. I think that at this point we have to look at when a major political party says that any deviation from its orthodoxy makes you no longer viable as a particular member of a racial group, we've got a real problem there. It means they are using racial tactics, and I'm going to argue, if you're going to use racial terrorism, then you're a racist.
Well,
we have a real problem.
I think we've done some digging tonight, and I want to make sure that we following our philosophy of the show of providing what it is that we can do to move forward. I would say this: then what an opportunity we may have to be able to take the worldview, the perspective, the community-based, family-based, faith-based, country-based perspectives, freedom-based perspectives, and share them with our fellow Black American friends, and families and Hispanic families and gay families and whomever. And I think if they were just aware, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to reduce it to, again, this is like the alternate world of bizarro world, and I'm Mr. Cynic tonight, but I just think that really what we're fighting against in most cases is just a marketing campaign. I think that the media has provided a lot of slick advertising that makes it sound like, once again, like in the 90s with Bill Clinton, like Democrats are cool, Republicans are stuffy and old, you know. And I think that it's just about, it's not, it's you wouldn't think that subjects like free speech and preservation of individual security and all these things would belong to one party. But I think that the ideas are there. I mean, I'm just as much an advocate for the environment as anybody that I know. I just don't think that you have to destroy the world's economy to do it. I think that we need to take the opportunity to take these data points and perspectives on listening and learning to one another and dive deep and share this with friends and family. Put on local community talks. Have people over to your house. Have a little, tea party once we can. That sounds like a Disney princess, but I mean, have this opportunity. What an opportunity we have to be able to share these ideas and to talk calmly but passionately with people about perspectives that maybe they've never considered before. Because I think that Black Americans, just like white Americans, just like Hispanic Americans, Japanese Americans, gay Americans, tall Americans, all want to believe in the concept of what America really is, which is that bigger arcing philosophy, which would be that of opportunity. And I think that we have a duty to our country to share that possibility with people so they can take it upon themselves to discover the opportunity that they want. I think I read that once in some founding documents. And I think that having conversations like tonight are important because it's easy when you're in alignment with everything, but you get the good stuff when you dig down in there. And I think there's a lot that you brought up tonight for me that I'm certainly going to consider. And I think that's where it is. But whether it's, whether you're piercing the main tent poles in the ground or articulating each wire to make sure that the big top stays up, both are necessary. And I think it's important that we come to a consensus among our brothers and sisters in this country to formulate a path forward for everyone's success, without the government being the central form of distribution, but rather ourselves and each other.
Absolutely. I believe there's no smaller minority than the one, the individual. That's why I find racism to be so abhorrent. Racism requires a belief that everyone is the same, and that everyone is an equivalent. And that is abhorrent to me because I believe we are all uniquely made by God to be who we are.
Racism is reductionist wrapped in stupidity.
And sold by someone who with ill intent. I think that we as a nation advance when we allow individuals to be who they are. When they are allowed to make choices, and when politics is not a game, but rather is the tool that we use to build this house that we all live in. That is our goal. I want everyone to go home at the end of the night. I want everyone to be able to have the opportunity to succeed. I can't tell you how to succeed. I can't tell you what goal to pursue, but I want everyone to have that opportunity, and we won't have it as long as politicians look at us and say, well, you're all this thing, and that is all you can ever be. And when someone says, no, I want real progress, we allow them. We allow these politicians, we allow these thought leaders, as sad as the concept of Joy Behar being a thought leader is, but she is. If we allow them to destroy people who want to use their voice, we will never advance. We will never recover as a society. Senator Tim Scott, and I'm not saying this because I agree with everything he said that night, although I do. I'm not saying this because I agree with his plans or I have any other desire for him other than this. He gets to make a choice about what he believes and what he says.
Agreed.
And on that note, folks, we will see you next time.